Let's talk some health issues now, because as you know, spring may have finally sprung, but with the mild weather comes seasonal illnesses such as chickenpox. The condition is associated with flu-like symptoms followed by a very itchy red rash, and you're most likely to catch it between March and May, apparently. But how contagious is it, and can you catch it twice? Well, here's Dr. Anu Bharti with more for you.
Spring is a particular time of year when we can catch chickenpox. And typically, children between the ages of 4 and 10 can catch this very contagious illness, which is usually passed on through little droplets in coughs and sneezes. We're seeing many cases of chickenpox at the moment, like Sarah here, who fortunately is making good recovery. But what are the symptoms and signs to look out for? Well, first of all, a flu-like illness, which means a temperature, a sore throat and generally feeling unwell. Then you get the appearance of the rash up to about 5 days later. And this is usually big red spots on the front of the chest, the back and the head, and they can be very itchy.
I was told to keep her away from very young kids, say like babies, very old people and pregnant women.
Chickenpox can last up to 3 weeks, and most children, like Sarah, can make a very good recovery.
Bharti joins us now. We were chatting a short while ago, and it's quite puzzling. Why is it a seasonal illness? Why can you get chickenpox more often in, say, March to May than any other time of the year?
Well, it's spread by droplets in coughs and sneezes, and at that time of year, in the winter and the early spring, you have far more respiratory illnesses like coughs and colds, so you're more likely to pass it on that way.
So this is the time when parents have to be quite vigilant just to watch to see if their kids start to develop it, is that right?
Yes, yeah.
OK, and if they do, what should they do?
Well, it's usually characteristic by this sort of prodrome, which is a flu-like illness, and then you get the rash, and the rash is very, very characteristic, sort of red blobs all over the body, which can be quite itchy. The child may become unwell. Now, you may want to go to your GP and get it diagnosed. It's not a problem with that, but usually it's something which is self-limiting, and the child can usually recover quite well at home.
So thankfully, in most cases, it's not serious. We were just talking to Ben, and his poor little boy had it, and he was hospitalised for it for a few days, so it actually can be very serious.
It can have complications. I mean, you know, in the case of your son, it depends where the lesions appear. You know, if they appear in the throat, you stop drinking, the throat swells up, and you may need to go into hospital for hydration. Sometimes you can get secondary infections. Rarely you can get chest infections, pneumonia, and very rarely sort of infections of the brain.
And bizarrely enough, it's almost better to get it as a child, because if you get it when you're an adult, it's far worse.
Much worse as an adult.
Why is that?
It's sort of like the virus sort of expresses itself more, it goes on for longer, and the risk of complications are much more, so you need to get that treated as soon as possible.
And I think some parents are going as far as having pox parties, which don't sound much fun at all, just so that kids almost get it early.
Yeah,
get
between
it out
the ages of 4 and 10, as long as the children are well, there's no reason why you shouldn't expose them to chickenpox, and they can get it over and done with. They're usually well in about 2 or 3 weeks, and then you can sort of tick that box that they're fine.
Gosh. Now, in America, they immunise it, don't they? Why don't we do that here?
The vaccination only lasts for 5 years, so it's not lifelong. And also, if you immunise people, the risk of shingles, which is like the reactivation of the chickenpox virus, goes up. So, and also in America, the prevalence of chickenpox occurs more in adults, so there's more of a need to vaccinate here, whereas in this country, it's usually in childhood. Okay. And it's very self-limiting and harmless, so...
Unless you're pregnant, right?
If you're pregnant and you haven't had chickenpox, then there can be complications, and it's worth going to see your GP and getting that sorted. And also in newborn babies, because obviously the immunity is not as good. Very old people and people who are immunocompromised, for example, if they've got HIV or conditions like that, they're likely to suffer complications.
OK, and what about shingles? Because that is a kind of more serious strain of chickenpox, is that right?
Well, it's the same family. So chickenpox is varicella zoster, and shingles is herpes zoster, and it's sort of like a reactivation of the virus, which can occur if you're very run down or if you've got other illnesses, then you can get shingles, but it's a different kind of illness.
Sounds very nasty. Now, while you're here, let's have a quick chat about skin cancer, because I actually couldn't believe this when I read this morning, that it is skin cancer now, or melanomas are the most common form of cancer in young girls or in teenagers and girls in their early 20s, because we're all addicted to the sun. I mean,
well, it's
dreadful.
Tanorexia, binge tanning, and I'd say again, please don't go on sunbeds, and if you are going to go in the sun, please wear Factor. And if you've got any moles that you think have changed, go along to your GP.
Because I thought the message was getting through that, you know, tans aren't that fashionable these days, sunbeds, you know, that's something we did in the 80s and the 90s, we don't do that anymore, but obviously not.
Well, I think it's so easy to get to go and use one of those coin-operated machines, and I think because it's easy to go to these sunbeds, you know, more and more sort of young children are going and doing it.
So fake it.
Absolutely,
that's
yes.
the right thing to do. Okay,
Yeah.
Dr. Anna Bussey, thanks so much for your time this morning. We'll see you soon.